meditation on the stages of the path. And this particular meditation, this particular snippet, we can say, of the text is very, very nice because it was written very soon after Lama Tsongkhapa. Lama Tsongkhapa, of course, wrote the great text. So you're not giving them a choice. You're just putting it up on my screen here, okay? Lama Tsongkhapa wrote a great glance meditation on the stages of the path called Yondan Shugirma, the foundation of all good qualities. You probably recite that sometime. So that's also an excellent kind of panorama of the whole path. But here we have a slightly different presentation of it that many of you recite at least twice a month if you do the Soothe Puja, if you do Lama Chopa Puja or Guru Puja twice a month. Some people do it every day. When I received it from the Dalai Lama, I had a commitment to do it every day, so I've tried to do it every day for probably 15, 20 years, I can't remember. And so this part of it comes at the end after having made many offerings and so forth. When we talk about the word puja, puja is an Indian word that is translated in Tibetan as chopa, like we say Lama Chopa, right? Which means, Lama means guru, Chopa means puja. So Lama Chopa means Guru Puja. Puja means to please. It actually doesn't mean just to offer. So sometimes people think offering to the guru, it means to please the guru. And the best way to please the guru are the various elements of the Lama Chopa, the Guru Puja, which include visualizing the field of assembled gurus, like I have behind me here. And then performing with respect to them, the central being of that being Lama Tsongkhapa in the center at the top of the tree, lineage lamas around that, and the various Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas and so forth, protectors and so forth. So performing with respect to them the 7-limb puja, the 7-limb offering. So not all, or 7-limb puja, which includes, as you know, prostration and offering and confession and rejoicing, requesting the Buddhas to remain until the end of samsara, requesting them to turn the wheel of dharma, and dedicating the merits, seven elements. And then there are various requests that are made to the gurus for realizations, and some other elements, reciting of mantras and so forth. And after having accumulated merit and purified negative karma through those 7 limbs and requests and so forth, there is at the end this panoramic view of the path. And when I say that, this glance meditation, what that means is every day it's worthwhile to go through the various stages of the path in some organized way. You can go through the Lamrim outlines, of course, but that's sometimes a bit laborious. I think some of the students at ABC may have memorized that outline for their final exams and so forth. But one of the other traditional ways to do it that is chantable are these various prayers, like the Foundation of Good Qualities that Lama Tsongkhapa composed, and this glance meditation on the stages of the path by the First Panchen Lama. So as you recite it every week, every month, a couple of times perhaps, or maybe every day, it's a very excellent way to recall all the stages of the path. And generally, the way that it's used is that maybe, let's say if you start on one particular day, the first day of the month, you will recite all of the verses of that prayer, the glance meditation on the path, which includes sutra and tantra. but you'll put more time on meditating on, let's say, the first verse. In this case, it says Guru devotion as the root of the path. And then after you recite that verse, you imagine, as we will mention during the class, you imagine white light coming from the merit field, the assembled gurus here, who you visualize in front of you, white light coming and purifying all your negativities, white light and nectar coming and purifying all your negativities, and then yellow light coming and bringing, once the mind is purified of its obstructions and negative karma and so forth, yellow light bringing the realizations of those meditations. And then one would go on to the second verse. And sometimes you would say that you wouldn't spend as much time on that the first day. You would go through the whole path, all of the rest of the verses. The second day, you would recite the first verse. And when you recite the second verse, you would spend more time on that. You would meditate on that afterwards, using that to remind you of the stages of the Lamrim. You would meditate on that for some time after having first imagined white light and nectar coming and purifying the obstructions in your mind that prevent you from making those realizations, and then yellow light bringing you the blessings of those realizations. That's kind of how one uses a prayer like this. So here, the first verse says in Tibetan, Shingchok dampa jesun lama la chuchin kupe soa tapetu deleg sawa gompo gyoniki geishin jesu zimba jingilo, which you have the chance to look at that on your screen there. So the way that I'm going to explain this, and you've probably received teachings on this, you may very well have received teachings on this by the Dalai Lama or Lama Zopa Rinpoche. We're going to try to do about 2 verses, maybe 3 verses a day for these next 8 classes. So we won't get through the entire thing, but we will cover the sutra path perhaps, or at least up to a certain point in the sutra path through the Lojong and everything. And the text that I'm going to use is a text by Muchu Dharma Bhadra. Muchu Dharma Bhadra was the Lama whose text I used when we talked about the 8 verses of training the mind. He had a very short commentary on that. So Muchu Dharma Bhadra is one of the lineage lamas, not that far, maybe in the 1700s, 1800s, and very close to this time in terms of the Tibetan, structure of things. So in his text here, if you happen to have this text by Muchu Dharma Bhadra, his commentary on the Lama Chopa. So I'm just it's on page 63 of that, starting on that text. We're leaving all the rest of the Lama Chopa behind. So he says, in this outline, he says, the second main outline, after having done all of these pujas and everything to please the guru. The guru is not pleased simply by making offerings or you helping them and so forth, but by your practice of the Dharma. So this is also part of the puja. So it says, Nipa, second, the requesting the blessings of the experience and realizations of the stages of the path. And that has 4 outlines. The way of depending on the spiritual friend, which is the root of the path. That's the first one we're talking about here. Sometimes people say the guru is the root of the path. I'm not sure if that's really the meaning. I think it's our proper reliance, depending on, relying on the guru, our guru devotion. That itself is the root of the path. In fact, this first this first verse and that practice of Guru devotion, the essence of it is said to be one of the most difficult realizations of the Lamrim, to see all gurus as Buddhas, to see all Buddhas as gurus. That's the essence of Guru devotion. And I think I mentioned last time that the other one of the most difficult realizations to make is to recognize all sentient beings as having been your mother. Those two are said to be the two most difficult realizations of the path. So in Muntu Dharmabhadra's text, he says the way to depend on the spiritual friend, the Gewe Shenyan, which is the root of the path, and then the way to train the mind, having depended on that. That's the second outline. And the third outline is once the mind is trained, if you have not finished all of the essential points of the path, how to transfer consciousness at the time of death. And then the last outline is a summary of the meanings, which are the prayers, the principal prayers of the Buddha's the Bodhisattvas, Buddha's Bodhisattvas and their retinue and so forth. So the first outline, how to depend on the spiritual friend, starts with this verse, Shingshok Dampa, supreme field of merit. So what does that mean? Here, the verse, the translation that you have in front of you there, supreme field of merit, my perfect pure guru, actually the words don't say that, it says supreme field. And the Dampa can mean holy, or is it there? It says perfect. So it's supreme. Jetsun is a word that you've heard, like Jetsun Milarepa, Jetsun Kappa, but Jetsun has the sense of someone who is exceedingly, has all the qualities of a spiritual friend, someone who's subdued and is, has that to the greatest quality. So to this perfect pure guru, as you say there, supreme field of merit. Why is it called a supreme field of merit? Because in the world, an ordinary field where you can plant seeds that has fertilizer in it and so forth is considered to be a worldly field. But this supreme field, by cultivating a relationship with a guru, being respectful, following their teachings, sometimes serving them, in terms of, like at the center, sometimes you might bring Ken Rinpoche his cup of tea, or you walk with him to the throne and so forth, or help him with errands. But the main way of relying on the guru in action and in thought is by seeing them as an emanation of the Buddha, and from the Mahayana point of view, and following their teachings, putting their teachings into practice. So supreme field of merit, my perfect guru, through the power of having made offerings and respectful requests, I seek your blessings, Savior. And well, Gompo can mean, they translate Gompo as Savior, can mean protector. The very root of happiness and goodness. I seek your blessings that I may come under your joyful guidance. So what this means is, this gives you the opportunity, having recited those verses, and you'll see the connection with all of the words as we go along here. Using that, then after having recited that, and imagine light coming, purifying you, light and nectar coming, white generally to purify the obstructions, to make the realization of a guru devotion, reliance on the guru. And then yellow light and nectar coming to bring the realizations from the merit field. Lama Tsongkhapa, all of the various emanations of lineage lamas and Buddhas, the various meditational deities, bodhisattvas, and all these practitioners, dakas and dakinis and everything. Then you would meditate on that for some time. You would meditate on the general practice of guru devotion. So what are the essential points of that? For my mind, well, let's put it this way. One of the essential points is that even in a worldly sense, when you do any particular kind of practice, you learn how to make a clay, on a wheel. You spin the clay and you make vases and cups and put designs on them and so forth. You need a teacher. Or if you're going to another, an isolated place, you need a guide, a place that you've never gone before. Sometimes you might be able to work, you may be able to do with a book, a guidebook, like say, for instance, you might think, why do I need a guru? I can just read these books, the Buddha's teachings. Because there's something very special about having a living guide who recognizes the particular situation that you are in right now, understands your own limitations and your own qualities, and is able to lead you quickly and safely to your destination. In this case, the destination is final enlightenment through the stages of the path, the making the realizations of developing renunciation of this lifetime, renunciation of all of samsara, developing bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta, realizing emptiness, practicing the bodhisattva's deeds, developing a deep insight into emptiness, but practicing the perfection of wisdom, and so forth. You need a guide to do that. Even in worldly things, you need a guide. That's one thing. The Buddha himself said that when he passed away, Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, that his omniscient mind would not disappear, but would manifest as teachers in the future, and that you just had to recognize him. So the practice of devoting oneself to a spiritual guide is something that is very revered in the East. As Chinese students, Chinese culture there in Singapore, not all of you are Chinese, so maybe there's some British or English among the ABC students. I can't remember. I remember there were some Russians and others, but generally that's more easy to accept in your culture as opposed to Western culture. Okay, I can't see here. I can't see my own image there. Okay, doesn't matter. Just wanted to make sure that I wasn't getting off the screen there. It's more easy to have reverence because you have great respect for your parents and so forth. So you meditate on guru devotion, all of the various outlines of that from the Lamrim. And so those of you who have already studied the stages of the path, the Lamrim, can use this to recall those various stages. For instance, the advantages of relying on a spiritual guide, that it gets you closer to enlightenment, that you accumulate incredible merit by relying on the guru and viewing them as at least a representative of the Buddha, if not an emanation of the Buddha. You quickly make the realizations, and you quickly purify very, very heavy negative karma. And then there are the various defects of not properly relying on the spiritual guide, treating them with disrespect, losing your faith in them, and so forth. Those qualities, the respect and faith, are things that you have to cultivate over time to have them authentic, not simply based on your culture alone. Saying that, I'm an Easterner and I have to rely on the guru and so forth. Recognizing the advantages of doing so for yourself. And in terms, the advantages for yourself in the sense of you more easily making realizations. And therefore having the ability to be guided into helping other sentient beings to overcome your delusions, to develop equanimity toward others, developing actual empathy and compassion and love for others, and practicing the Bodhisattva's deeds and so forth. So let me just mention a couple of things here from Mutra Dharmabhadra's text. I won't mention all of the things. So the words gupe, or respectful, having requested respectfully, that indicates the advantages and disadvantages. That gives you an opportunity to recall those, the advantages of relying on the spiritual guide and the disadvantages of not relying on them. It mentions in here that worldly fields provide the opportunity to produce just merely a crop, grains and broccoli and cauliflower and carrots, and Tibetans usually talking about grains because they didn't have that many vegetables and so forth in Tibet. Whereas through reliance on a teacher, spiritual guide, the supreme field, it's called supreme field because arises everything that you need and desire, everything that's all the realizations and so forth. When we talk about the kindness of the guru, usually in the Kargyu and Nyingma traditions, and sometimes in the Gelugpa traditions, they talk about the three kindness, the guru who is kind in three ways: kind to give teachings, kind to give vows, and kind to give either blessing, commentary on the teachings or initiations and so forth. My teacher Lama Yeshe used to say, however, that rather than talking about initiations and so forth, the guru is kind in having provided all the material things that we need. So you might think, oh, that means that, in the monastery, that's some old tradition. In the monastery, the guru gives you tea and makes sure that you have food and a room and robes and so forth. But what the real meaning of that, Lama said, was that our primordial guru, who's been guiding us since beginningless time, the omniscient mind, has taught us in previous lives to practice virtue, which is generally something that we don't do of our own accord. And as a result of that, we create virtuous karma. And as a result of when that karma ripens in this lifetime, we have the material that we need. We have a human body of leisure and endowment. We have the resources, health, long life, and everything as a result of the kindness of the guru. So you can use this first verse as those of you who have already studied the Lamrim as a reminder, an opportunity to go over all of the stages of the Lamrim, all of the stages of guru devotion from the Lamrim. those of you who have not received teachings on the stages of the path before, this gives you an opportunity to have your book open, you know, either the Lamrim Chemo, the Great Stages of the Path by Lama Tsongkhapa, or Pabonka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, or one of the Dalai Lama's, you know, the Joyful Path or the Quick Path, many different Lamrim texts, the Essence of Refined Gold and so forth. Reading those texts about Guru devotion, and then when you recite these words of the glance meditation, when you do the Guru Puja, Shingchok Dampa Jesun Lama La, Chuching Gobe So Atape Tu, Delek Sawa Gompo Goniki, Keishin Jesu Zimpa Jingilo, you recall having meditated on that, on the meaning of those words in detail, very slowly, simply reciting the words again, bring back a remembering consciousness of those realizations, those understandings. Simply reciting the words alone has value, of course, but not the same value as having meditated on those words. And then when you recite the words, it brings back a remembering consciousness of those realizations. And just, even if you, after a long period of time of familiarization with those words and those verses, even saying them quickly sometime when you don't have a chance to go slowly brings you back to that very, you know, satisfying understanding that is so useful. I mentioned when I was in Singapore before that one of my teachers, Geshe Rapton, who was the teacher of Lama Yeshe, he's the one who asked Lama Yeshe to be Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teacher. Geshe Rapton, Geshe-la used to say that the only regret that he had was, as he grew older, was that there were some days when he didn't spend time meditating on the stages of the path. You know, the Lamrim is like the nectar that can bathe your mind that is maybe traumatic, you know, there's some, you know, unhappy, angry, or unfulfilled desires, you know, sadness and so forth, problems. The Lamrim is the solution to that. The Lamrim is also the solution to our future lives. I'm wondering, can the people who are organizing the course, I can't see my own image here. Can the people see my image, or they have only that Lamrim prayer up on the screen?
I can see your image.
I can't see it. Okay. I don't have a choice. I don't have a chance to see it for some reason. There's no. Okay.
Yeah. A few of them have replied they can see. Yeah.
If you can take off the Lamrim prayer there and put my own picture up so I can see myself, so I know if I'm centered or not in here. Can you do that?
Let me see.
There we go. Okay. There we go. That's good. And do people have a choice, a chance then to click on an image of the prayer if they want to put that up when we go to it? Okay, doesn't matter. We'll just keep on going here. So, okay. I had asked before. There we go. Excuse me, what does this say? Okay. So the Lamrim is, the name that I'd given for this course is something like Nectar to Soothe the Heart and Bright Lamp to Illuminate the Mind. So the Lamrim is like that nectar when the mind is boiling. If you pour in some cool water into that. It helps to soothe. If you've got, you know, rash on your arm or fever, if you put a nice cold compress on, you know, or bathe yourself in some aloe vera or something, you know, some nice soothing thing that soothes the skin and the mind and the heat and so forth. So the Lamrim is like that. So there's, to talk about the subject of relying on the spiritual friend, the guru devotion, we could spend the next 8 classes just on that alone. And probably that's happened when Lama Zopa is taught, as probably was happened many of the times, because it's the proper reliance on the guru is the root of your spiritual growth. And so the devotion on the guru is the root of the path. And so if that is well established, then things go much easier. So I'm not going to go in more detail about that. I'm going to go to the next outline in the commentary, the next verse. So in you skip over the 9 ways of relying, you know, the different attitudes with the guru. You go to LC 85. There we go. This precious rebirth. So in Mutra Dharmabhadra's text, he says, second outline, showing the method of happiness in future lives in samsara. So this is what we call, generally in the Lamrim, colloquially we call the precious human rebirth, but it's in Tibetan, and I can't remember what the Sanskrit word is, Deljor. You see in the first line there, Lenchik Samchik Nepe Deljor Di. Deljor, Del means freedom or leisure, and Jorwa means some enhancement, richness, or endowments. The text says liberties and endowments. So this life that we have right now, that we don't, you know, many people waste on making money, becoming famous, having pleasure of the senses, climbing Mount Everest, all of the various things that our life is spent on, without really taking advantage of this special opportunity we have that is leisure and endowment. What that means is that we have the leisure or freedom or liberty from being born in states when we cannot really practice the Dharma to the full extent. We could be born in the hell realms, almost no chance to practice the Dharma. That's an unfree, no liberty state, no leisure there. We can be born as a hungry ghost. Generally, we're overcome by the suffering of desire and not finding food and drink and so forth, and very difficult to practice the Dharma as a hungry ghost, as a preta. We can be born as an animal. Extremely difficult. You do find some noble pets, I know, noble dogs and cats that may help other ones, but in general, the great suffering of those states is a great ignorance. We can't really, even you tell your dog to circumambulate the stupa or to say Omani Padme Hum, they just wag their tail, right? It's not a free state. We're not free when we're born above the human realm, in the God realms, but especially the long life gods that have so much pleasure that the whole life is spent in just enjoying that without ever practicing Dharma, never developing a sense of compassion or renunciation or anything, because everything is coming to you so easily. Like those who are born to wealthy families, in some ways, they have more challenge to practice the Dharma. They have to be very special people. They have to use a special effort to develop renunciation of those things. But there are people, very great practitioners like that. So, lenchik samchik nepe deljordi, this leisure and endowment that has been acquired or found, nepa means to find or acquire or to obtain. Lenchik samchik means just one time. So that the implication of that is that, as I say, there is found once, is found but once, just merely one time. What that means is, in our previous lives, the life before this and the lives before that, most people who were human now were not humans in the previous life. They were somewhere in states without liberty to practice the Dharma. From the side of the person, they were maybe born in realms where they couldn't practice, or from the side of the Buddhas not existing in the world, or from the side of being born in a country where there was no freedom to practice, even as born as a human, in some cases born in communist China and so forth. Chang Hao is trying to say something to me. I better see what he's saying. Please stay on after class. Okay. Sorry. So this life that we have right now has come about because of karma that we've created in past lives. Most likely, not in the very immediately previous life to this, unless one has really entered into the path and accumulated merit over successive lives. We might have been born as an animal in the previous life, or in the Preta realm or the hell realm. We might have fallen from the God realm. So this life of leisure and endowment has come just sort of like, it only comes occasionally. The example for that is the example that the Buddha gave in the sutras of a blind turtle who is on the bottom of the ocean, huge turtle, and it's sitting down there for 100 years. Once every 100 years, it comes up to the surface to get a breath of air, sticks its head above the water, just for an instant, 1 second, takes the breath, goes back down again for 100 years. That's kind of like our predicament. We're in the lower realms, like the bottom of the ocean, for, well, do you know how many seconds there are in a year? I think I remember from when in college we used to, the lunchroom, thing to do was to figure out things on a napkin. You could say, I think there are about pi times 10 to the 7th seconds per year. So 1 second out of 10 to the 7th, what is 10 to the 7th? 10 million? One second out of 10 million or 30 million seconds. Most, 29,999,999 seconds, one is on the bottom of the ocean, and 1 second one comes up to the top, one is born in the upper realms. Most of the time, one is, even in the upper realms, one is not born with leisure and endowment. The Buddhas don't exist. You have some other karmic obstacles. You're mute or blind, or you have great suffering. You're a slave. You're some other kind of thing. But very, very occasionally, everything comes together, and the existence of the right conditions to be born with leisure and endowment come together like a golden ring or yoke that's floating at the top of the ocean. The tortoise, once and many, many times coming up, it actually goes through that yoke very, very rare, even among the times one is born in the human realm. Very, very rare one has the opportunity of having leisure and endowment. That's the example the Buddha gave of that. Because it causes to be born as a human, to have the Buddha existing, the teachings existing, to have the energy and interest to do that, not being blinded by just the ambition and interest in the happiness of this life alone. So realizing how this body of liberties and endowments, the word bodies is not actually in the text, but that's kind of the translator's discretion there to add that word in. How liberty and endowment, or leisure and endowment, is found but once, is difficult to obtain. Neka nirdu. Neka. Ne means the same ne as in the first line, means find or obtain or achieve. Ka means difficult. So difficult to attain. Why is it difficult to find again a human rebirth? Because the causes are very difficult to practice. The main cause of being born in the upper realms is pure morality, avoiding creating heavy negative karma and actually creating virtuous karma. Most people in the world, they might consider themselves virtuous, but their main preoccupations is to obtain wealth. They have pleasure of the senses, the 8 worldly dharmas, pursuit of the 8 worldly dharmas. So those of you who have the chance to take, say, the lay vows, or even if you don't take vows, to practice abstention from the 10 non-virtuous actions, to practice the 10 virtuous actions, those can become one of the main causes of being born in the human realm. But the completing causes of that, the other things that you need, are to have resources and so forth, and the presence of the Buddhas. And so those are done through practicing the other perfections, such as generosity, being generous, not just the practice of morality, ethics, but practicing generosity, being liberal like that, and also requesting the Buddhas to remain in the world and to turn the wheel of Dharma, to go to the teachings, listen, to rely upon the spiritual guide. These are causes that are needed to have a life of leisure and endowment. Also, the other factor to bring all of the karma together to have in a future life a life of leisure and endowment is pure prayer. For the purpose of being able to help people, in the future, I want to be born as a human again, to receive more teachings, to practice the path, and to develop compassion and so forth in the human realm, which is the best place to practice. So to make prayers to be born as a human, request to the Guru and so forth, to take the 24-hour precepts, the Mahayana precepts, with the intention of achieving enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings. These are causes to be born with leisure and endowment in the future, but that's very difficult to find. That's a nekan nirdu jikbe sultogne. So nirdu jikba means this life of leisure and endowment that we found just by accident right now, just this one time. Generally, if we don't create the causes for it, it'll go and we'll be born in the lower realms for a long period of time, bottom of the ocean, like the turtle. But this doesn't last a long time. It quickly decays. So this line is talking about impermanence, what we call gross impermanence, when we talk about the meditation on death and impermanence. So as Ngutru Dabra said in his commentary about this verse, he said that this verse, generally when you have meditations on the Lamrim, the meditations on leisure and endowment or perfect human rebirth are separate from meditation on death and impermanence. But here, this verse is combining them. And it's a very special tradition, very special way to appreciate even more the special incidence right now of having leisure and endowment, of having freedom and endowment, this life, perfect human rebirth, because it's decaying in the shortest instant, and we'll have to leave it eventually. We have to die. So it's difficult to obtain and is quickly lost, quickly decays. So having realized that, and the second line, the last two words, tokne, means having realized the way in which this leisure and endowment, which is found just once right now, is difficult to find again and quickly decays. Having realized that, I request your blessings to take the essence, the meaningful message, meaningful essence, and without being distracted by the meaningless activities of this lifetime. So most of our lifetimes, even when we're born as humans, we spend the life from a Buddhist point of view, in what are called meaningless activities. Getting food, cooking the food, enjoying the food. We don't meditate. We don't utilize those to create merit or purify negative karma. We don't utilize those activities generally. Ordinary people don't, to develop compassion or renunciation. We don't use them to meditate on emptiness and so forth. So from that point of view, those actions are meaningless activities. Even accumulating a lot of money, becoming the most powerful person in the world, like some presidents and kings and so forth have incredible power, but they're, from the point of view of many people in the world, they're exalted people, but their lives are meaningless from a Dharma point of view. So we want to be able to not be distracted by these meaningless activities. Atisha, the great Indian teacher who came to Tibet, who brought the teachings on Lojong that we talked about the last 4 weeks, the training of the mind. Atisha had a verse that says something like, the number of things to be known are infinite. And but yet this life is very short. You could say in other ways, you could say the number of things you can do are infinite. The number of things to know, to become expert in making money, or climbing mountains, or fixing cars, or being attractive to the opposite sex, or to your partners. The number of things to know are infinite, but this life is very short. Therefore, we should be like the proverbial swan, which can come down to a little pond where, say, milk has been poured into the water of the pond. And within the water of the pond, there's maybe some dirt and, mud and so forth floating in it, and other kinds of debris that are not so useful. But the swan can put its beak in the water, take a mouthful of water, a beak full of water, and the holes in the bottom of the beak allow the water to go out, and anything that's essential, great essence can remain there. Like, say, if you pour milk into the pond, the swan can put its beak in there, take that water, let the water go out, and just remain in the mouth the essence there, the milk or the cream that you put in the water. So he said, we should be like the swan and take the essence of this life without being distracted by meaningless activities. So in meditating on this verse, you would go through all of the meditations, recognizing, first of all, that we have leisure and endowment to practice right now. Sometimes we don't recognize that. We have the freedom to practice the Dharma. We have all of the necessary qualities and attributes to do it. You don't need a lot. You don't need to have more money or a special condo or membership in the club or Mercedes-Benz or any of these other things that become so popular, seemingly so essential. You can practice. You just need some air to breathe, some food to eat, some shelter, and the opportunity to receive teachings, to meditate on them. I seek your blessings to make this leisure and endowment worthwhile, meaningful, and to take its essence without being distracted by meaningless affairs of this life. So this is a meditation that is combining two of the Lamrim meditations, the meditation on the perfect human rebirth, which has various parts, right? Recognizing what the various factors are, what are called the 8 freedoms or 8 leisures, and the 10 endowments. Recognizing that, and to develop a sense of joy. Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to say that if you really have an understanding of this, the value of this lifetime, that we can practice the Dharma, we can create the causes of future happiness, of numberless lifetimes in the future. We can set our course off going to enlightenment rather than, again, heading down to the bottom of the lower realms. We can create that with this life of leisure and endowment that we have right now. That's its great meaning. We could even achieve enlightenment this lifetime, or we could achieve liberation from samsara. Those are two of the meanings or aims or goals of this special meaning of this perfect life of leisure and endowment. Many people, at a certain point in the past, people say, what's the meaning of life? Maybe just to have happiness, just to have a family, just to have pleasure and so forth, or to become famous, or to have power. From a Buddhist point of view, from a Dharma point of view, all of those aims are meaningless. The 8 worldly affairs, the 8 worldly dharmas. The real meaning is to, either to achieve enlightenment or liberation, or to create the causes, to be born as a human again so that you can, and developing the various realizations along the path. Renunciation of this life, renunciation of samsara, compassion for others, loving kindness, bodhicitta, realization of emptiness, practicing the bodhisattva deeds. These are the meaningful things that we can do with this life of leisure and endowment, if we're not distracted by meaningless activities. Many of places that I've been over the years, Dharma centers, many people say, I come to the class with the geshe or the teacher and I do some reading, but I have no time to study. I have no time to practice because I have to make money. I have to go to work. I have to take the kids to school. I have to buy food. I have to cook the food. That's because we haven't understood how to integrate the Dharma into our lives, in everyday lives. So this gives you a chance when you meditate on this, when you say this verse and you think of the outlines, you first imagine from the merit field coming white light and white nectar coming, purifying you of the obstructions. Your mind is stuck that you don't have you can't practice for some reason. I've got to do this first. I first have to find a girl, a boy, or I have to find wealth, or I have to find, I have to please my parents or something by getting a job. I have to be a doctor or something. Eliminating those obstacles from the mind that prevent you from realizing you can practice the Dharma right now. And then yellow golden light and nectar coming, bringing the blessings of the omniscient mind to you from your guru, from all of the elements of the merit field. Bringing the blessings of making those realizations so that you have a confidence afterwards, after imagining, requesting them. That's what each of these verses is in the form of a request. Please grant me blessings. I seek your blessings. So those blessings coming, and you develop some confidence that I can make this realization. And then you meditate on the various, let's say, recognizing the qualities of a perfect human rebirth, leisure endowment, its meaning, what it can be used for, and the causes of it. The causes, pure morality, generosity, the other perfections, and pure prayer, bringing all of the karma together, recognizing how we have an opportunity to create those causes right now. And then recognizing then spending time also on the next meditation of the Lamrim, death and impermanence, how this life of leisure and endowment, although it has these great meanings, abilities, it's meaningful in that way that we can get closer to enlightenment, develop good qualities, but it quickly decays. In the shortest instant, it's disintegrating and we're getting closer to death. So this gives us an opportunity to meditate on gross impermanence. And those of you who already know the 9-round meditation on death that's so famous in the Gelugpa tradition, Buddhism in general, Tibetan Buddhism in general, but especially the Gelugpa tradition, 3 main meditations. The time of death is uncertain. We have no idea when we're going to die. First meditation. Death is definite. We definitely have to die. The second, the time of death is uncertain. And the third, when we do die, the only thing that helps us at that time is our practice of the Dharma, our accumulation of merit, our wisdom, our compassion, our peaceful mind. None of the things of this lifetime are of any benefit at that time. The wealth that we have, we cannot take with us, our friends, our companions, all of the fame that we've acquired, the power. Lama Zopa Rinpoche told me a story once. He said there was one nun in the early days. I'm not sure if she was Australian, British, or American, or whatever. She had built a little kuti, a little hut on the side of a hill with bamboo poles holding up the floor. It was over the edge of the cliff, and it had caught fire when she was outside, and she was worried that her belongings would be lost. So she ran back into into the fire, and because of having been, the fire had made it less stable, it collapsed and she died. So like that, going back into, after you lose one relationship, wanting to get another one, not realizing that there's all of these activities of the world, love and relationships and fame and fortune and club memberships and power and respect, all of these things will be lost. And if we pursue them, like this nun who went back into her little kuti, will fall back into the lower realms. So to meditate on the 9-round meditation on death, it's called 9-round because 3 main reasons. Each of them have three main topics. Each of them have 3 reasons. Death is definite because death comes to everyone. There's no way to avoid it. Even as we're here now, every instant we're getting closer to death. And at the time of death, there's no extra life. These outlines, those of you who have studied it before. And then we spend most of our time not practicing the Dharma. This third reason is not generally a reason to prove that death is definite, but it can bring about, it said, a reason that brings about the quick realization of that. So those of you who have not studied the Lamrim before, not familiar with these outlines, this is the time. You have your book open. When you get to this verse, when you're meditating on this for some time, you'll read something and you'll receive the blessings of the gurus, the merit field, after having made this request. And you read those verses and you meditate on them. And then you go on to the next verse and so forth. Okay. There's so much that can be said about all of these topics. Any one of them, we could spend a whole course on it. So I'm going to introduce the next verse here, and I'll go more about it next time also. It's sort of like a bridge to the next time. So, Nensong dugna bawe mejigne, ningne konchok sumla kebjoshing, dikpon kesok dadak drupala, sumpa lulan chepa jingilo. I usually recite it in Tibetan just because I've done it for many years. But if you don't know Tibetan, better to say it in English. So the translation we have here is the words I think come from John Landau's translation many, many years ago, sort of like a literature person's way of translating it. Aghast at the searing blaze of suffering in the lower realms. Gensong dugnal bawe mejigne, having, jik doesn't mean aghast, but it can mean aghast. It means out of fear of the blazing fire of suffering in the Ngensong, means the lower realms, gone bad. That's one of the causes of refuge, right? You know what the causes of refuge are? We need to have fear of, some kind of trepidation, some kind of concern that just on our own, we're not going to be able to solve life's problems, or in this case, to have a suitable rebirth in the future. This is the basic, the fundamental necessity to take refuge, a fear of the lower realms, although generally people, especially in the West, can you consider Singapore West? I don't know, as opposed to, Tibetans and so forth. People don't like to think about the suffering of the lower realms, suffering of the hell realm, the Preta realm, the animal realm. But it said, some lamas said in the text that to meditate on yourself with a hell-being body in the hot hells, or boiling in liquid and having the hell protectors sticking spears in you, never having a moment of respite to think about the Dharma, or being in the cold hells, so cold, teeth chattering, body becoming one with the ice, no chance to have the leisure to think about the Dharma, to practice the Dharma. Or here, although it's talking about fire, and of course the cold hells don't have blazing fire or a searing blaze. It can be understood metaphorically, or it could just be understood as mainly talking about the hot hells here, and by implication, all of the suffering of the other lower realms, the animal realm, the Preta realm, and so forth. having, out of that fear and having developed a appreciation of the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, what are called the three refuges. You know, when we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Tibetans say Konchok Sum. Kon means rare, Chok means supreme, Sum means three. The three rare supremities or supremes, not the singing group, the supremes. Actually, what is that called in Sanskrit? Triratna, the three jewels. But in Tibetan, they made a point of, when translating Triratna, the three jewels or three gems, precious gems, when translating it into Tibetan, they said kon, because jewels are rare. The Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are rare to encounter, and they're supreme, chok. They're the best refuges. So from the heart, Ningne, Konchok Sumla, Kabjo Shing. I will go for refuge to the three rare supremities, sincerely, from the heart, out of a fear of the blazing fire of suffering of the lower realms. Dikpong Getso Tadak Drupala, Sumpa Lurlan Shepa Jingilop. Jingilop means, please grant me blessings to strive, Lurlen, Sumpa Lurlen, in achieving the elimination of negativities. Dikpong, Dikpa means negativities. Pongma means to abandon. Getsok means the collection of virtues. Tadak means every, each and every. So we'll talk about this next time. Just introducing it now, this third verse. So before we end, it's about 10 minutes after, I was asked last time if we could spend a little time on meditating. So if you go back to the first verse, what was it? Guru devotion, right? Shingchok Dhamma, supreme field of merit, my perfect guru, pure guru, through the power of having made offerings and respectful requests, I seek your blessings, protector or savior, who you are, who the very root of happiness and goodness. When it says happiness and goodness, that means, when we say delek, that means the happiness of upper realms, higher rebirths, and lek means definite goodness. It's short for definite goodness. That means escape, liberation, and enlightenment. So you're the root of happiness of future lifetimes at the minimum, and the root of achieving liberation and enlightenment and so forth. So imagine the merit field in front of you. If you can see behind me, merit field here. Your guru, maybe Ken Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Dalai Lama, some Chinese lamas or some other gurus that you have. Imagine their omniscient minds recognize your wish right now to have their blessings, to be cared for them, for us to be cared for by them, and to make these realizations. So imagine, especially the realization of guru devotion, to see them as representatives at least of the Buddha, if not emanations of the Buddha, to remember their kindness and their qualities and so forth. So imagine white light coming from the merit field right now to you. Yeah, it's possible right now, even though your visualization may be not very clear. Just imagine that light and nectar is coming, purifying you due to your wish and request to the omniscient mind of the obstructions to properly devoting oneself to the Guru. And then yellow, golden light comes and nectar comes, bringing the blessings of the realizations remembering what Guru Vajradhara said in the Tantras, that even if your teacher is not actually Buddha, by recognizing them as a representative and imagining them, if they're a proper guru, imagining them as a, as the Buddha, taking their teachings, their words, as actual, no less than the words of the Buddha, as though the Buddha were actually here. The Buddha Vajradhara, Guru Vajradhara said he would enter into their mind stream, the Guru's mind stream, and bless us. So think of the advantages of properly relying on the spiritual guide, devoting oneself to one's teacher, to especially their putting into practice their teachings. And when occasionally in action, helping Ken Rinpoche pour his tea, or doing errands, or working for the center, working in the library, cleaning the gompa. Accumulating merit in so doing, and purifying negative karma like that. And then, if you had the time, you would meditate on the advantages of relying on the spiritual guide, the disadvantages of not relying, how to cultivate faith and respect from the Lamrim teachings, from various scriptural citations and logic and so forth. And then you would go on to the next verse. Plenchik samshik nepe deljordi, neka nudu jikpe sultongne, and so forth. Realizing how this body of liberty and endowment, liberties and endowments, is found but once, acquired just once, just this one time, is difficult to obtain again, and is quickly lost. That it quickly decays. I request your blessings to make it meaningful, like the swan that puts its beak in the water, leaves all of the other garbage out. Let the meaningless things of this life, not be your preoccupation, but take the essence of this life of leisure and endowment, which is to practice the teachings, to develop renunciation of this lifetime, renunciation of samsara, develop compassion, and so forth. I seek your blessings to make it worthwhile and take its essence without being distracted by the meaningless affairs of this life. So imagine white light comes from the merit field, white nectar also, into your body, into your mind, erasing, just, cleansing out all of the obstructions, your obsessions with the happiness of this lifetime alone, your worries, washing them away so that you have the opportunity to open your mind to the possibility of practicing the Dharma. And then golden yellow light comes, and nectar comes from the bodies of the assembled gurus, and the Dharma texts also. I shouldn't say just the individuals, also the Dharma texts themselves that are next to each of the individuals in the merit field that represent the Dharma. That light comes and brings blessings to make these realizations. To not be distracted by, constantly obsessed with just the happiness of this life alone. To recognize how this life is ebbing in the shortest instant, like the big jar of honey that you got, and you thought, oh, now I've got my big supply of honey, every day, maybe it's in a dark jar so you don't see the level when you walk into the kitchen. Every day you take a spoon and put into your tea or whatever. At first, it seemed like so much, but every spoonful, it's getting less and less. It's getting to the end. It's depleting. Like that, our lives are quickly decaying. So to have this blessing of the gurus to make that realization, then to spend time on going over recognizing the qualities of this perfect human rebirth, like having found an incredible jewel that's so valuable that you didn't recognize before. Everything's okay. This life of leisure and endowment is more valuable than a wish-fulfilling jewel. Like when we talked about the 8 verses of Trading the Mind, the wish-fulfilling jewel. Because a wish-fulfilling jewel, although it can bring you happiness at this lifetime, you know, possessions and wealth and companions and so forth, maybe even help to repair the body and become healthy, it can't at all help you to escape from the lower realms, suffering of the lower realms in future lifetimes. But this perfect human rebirth can. So the perfect human rebirth is more valuable than a wish-fulfilling gem. In fact, it's more valuable than a whole universe full of wish-fulfilling gems. You might think, oh, yeah. Like say, for instance, in India, I told before, sometime I would think, oh, you know, I just lost 20 rupees on this rickshaw driver who ripped me off. It was only supposed to be 2 rupees. He took, and he didn't give me change for 20, you know, feeling upset, but recognize, oh, I've got so much money in the bank. It doesn't matter. In the same way, whatever befalls us this lifetime, to think that's trivial. I have a perfect human rebirth that's so much more valuable than a universe full of wish-fulfilling gems. So as to not be distracted by the meaningless activities of this lifetime, because this life that we have of leisure and endowment, although it has this great meaning, great value, it quickly decays. So we don't want to procrastinate. We don't want to put off the practice of the Dharma. So like that, once you have an understanding of how to practice these meditations, with each of the verses, you imagine white light and nectar coming to eliminate the hindrances to make that realization of those Lamrim insights. And then yellow golden light and nectar coming, bringing the realizations, blessings to make those realizations, and then to meditate on them. At first, if you don't know the outlines, if you're not familiar with the subjects, you have your Dharma book in front of you, you read some of that, then you meditate. You read a little bit more, you meditate, then you go on to the next verse, like that. If you can do that every day, this glance, panoramic meditation. So it's called a panoramic meditation because you're looking at the whole path rather than only always just one subject for your whole life, you know, just meditating on guru devotion your whole life, or only meditating on perfect human rebirth your whole life. There are methods, some gurus used to teach like that, until the student had an insight into the perfect human rebirth. They wouldn't teach death and impermanence. They wouldn't teach the suffering of the lower realms. They wouldn't teach refuge and so forth. But it is a great meaning to understanding the whole path, you know, the panorama, going through each of these verses. And if you've spent time, like I said at the beginning, if you spent time meditating on each of them, again and again, going over all the different points of those Lamrim meditations, merely saying the words can bring back the experience of the realizations of those that you had in deep meditation. So at times when you don't have a chance to meditate a lot, merely saying the words, going through this panoramic glance meditation of the stages of the path, it's like the nectar that can, when you have problems, your baby left you, you lost your job, the COVID-19 is rising again. I think you guys are doing pretty well there in Singapore. Here in the States, we're going through maybe you see in the news, we're the worst in the worst in the world right now because people aren't wearing their masks and so forth. So worried about those things. Meditating on the Lamrim can help to put all that into perspective. So I'm going to end there, and because I had mentioned, or Chan Hao had asked me before if I could do a little meditation at the end, and we said we'd try to do about an hour and a half. So it's 10:24 here. Is there any particular question that someone wants to ask? We could take time to ask a couple of questions.
Yeah, if there's anyone who wish to ask a question, please raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Remember, what are you going to ask yourself?
I'm going to ask myself a question. Yeah. Is it hot where you guys are?
Oh yeah, it's very sunny out here.
It's nighttime here, but it's in the low 70s or mid 70s. But my air conditioner ran out of. It had a leak and it lost the coolant, so I have the windows open and everything.
Okay. Okay. So,
no
yeah,
questions?
there is somebody. Hold on, now I'll meet the person. Yeah. Okay, Kim Chu, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Venerable George. This is Doris. This is Doris.
Oh, Doris. Hi, Doris.
Hi. Sorry. I don't have my earplug with me. But anyway, I just want to ask a very quick question. You can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, Venerable, if you look at the two translations, in the old translation of the Lama Chopa, the pronoun used throughout is we. In the FBMT translation, the pronoun used throughout is I. Is there a difference in the Tibetan itself, or is the pronoun added on? And do you see any difference between one or the other? I think
in most of the verses, there is no pronoun in the Tibetan. So it just depends. So like if you're saying it as a group, rather than, you can say we, or if you're saying it by yourself, you can say I. Say, realizing how this body of liberty and endowments is found but once, is difficult to obtain, and is quickly lost. I seek, there's in the Tibetan, it just says, please grant blessings. It doesn't say I seek or we seek. Please grant blessings. That means to yourself as you're requesting it. If you're requesting as a group, you can say, please grant us blessings to make it worthwhile and take its essence without being distracted by the meaningless affairs of this life. Okay, thank you. The other question I want to ask is, in the two translations, I think one is lost quickly and the other one is lost easily. Is it Tibetan easily or quickly or both? There is a difference between, this life is quickly lost or easily lost. What exactly is it? Right. Nurdu in the Tibetan, Nurdu means quickly. Okay. It doesn't say lost, although you can translate jikpa. Jikpa means to decay. So quickly decay. So to decay is one of the attributes of impermanence. So whatever you have is there one instant, and the next instant it's lost, right? It's decayed, and something else arises that's similar to what was there the previous instant. So literally it says, is difficult to acquire, and quickly decays, having realized the way in which this life of leisure endowment that's found just once is difficult to acquire and quickly decays. Please grant me blessings.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very much, Venerable.
Yeah.
See you. Bye.
Good question. Bye. Anyone else?
So far, I haven't seen anyone raise hands yet.
Okay.
Is any more questions?
This is, you are July 4th. This is the American Independence Day, I think. So,
Oh, yeah.
fortunately, Suikim has a question, yeah.
Yeah, Suikim.
There's a question.
Okay. Sorry. Suikim?
You have to unmute, Suikim. I don't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Hi. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. Good evening.
Okay. I just have a quick question. There's I noticed that you skip the 9 attitudes.
Right, that's not part of the Lama Chopa. That's something that Lama Chopa added, and so you can definitely do that, obviously. But the main way of doing these glance meditations is to use them, and of course you, like say the 9 attitudes of Guru devotion. That's one particular thing that Lama Zopa received teachings on, and he found very meaningful. A lot of the lineage lamas in the Kadampa Geshis, but that's not the only way to meditate on Guru devotion. The main thing is to go through the outlines, the advantages of properly relying, the disadvantages of not relying, how to generate faith, how to generate respect, how to practice in mentally, and how to practice in action. Those are the main outlines. And so those 9 attitudes can enhance that. So if you have recited those and are familiar with those, you can use those. Also, you can imagine the merit field sending you nectar and light to eliminate the obstacles to actualizing those 9 attitudes, and the light and nectar, golden light and nectar coming to bring you the blessings to actualize those. So, but those are not part of, those 9 attitudes are not part of the Panchen Lama's glance meditation here. That's something, there's a lot of little snippets that Lama Zopa Rinpoche has added that he found in his own practice, and for the benefit of his students, he thought was useful to add. Okay.
Okay, there's one more participant, Violet.
Hi, Violet.
Violet.
Hello, I hear you.
Violet, you need to unmute yourself.
Oh, that was you, yeah.
Hi, Venerable.
Hi.
I'd like to ask, is that the commentary text that you use, there is an English translation for us?
No, I don't think so. Nguchu Dharma Bhadra, his commentary to Lama Chopa, I don't believe it's been translated into English. This is it. So maybe someday I'll translate it. When I did my 3-year retreat, every day in the morning, I did the whole Lama Chopa very, in as much detail as I could. And although there are a lot of commentaries, you can get the Dalai Lama's commentary to Lama Chopa, what is it called? The Union of Bliss and Emptiness, or other lamas, there's a whole bunch of books on commentaries on Lama Chopa. But I found they would emphasize certain points and not others. And I wasn't really, I wanted something that was more explaining the deep meaning of the words. So I read this text in Tibetan, and I found it very useful. Maybe when I find some time, I will try to translate maybe the section on the Lamrim meditations here at the end, because the text, it takes a long time to to translate. But it's not, as far as I know, this particular commentary is not translated. There are a couple of commentaries. I think when the lamas give, they often use Yeshe Gelsen's commentary, or the one that Lama Zopa Rinpoche used the last time he was teaching in Singapore. The last couple of times he was teaching is one very famous commentary, but they all have some advantages and limitations. Sometimes they go over some things in more detail, and some things they just assume you understand what they mean. So it's good to study various commentaries of that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll end here, and we'll see you next Saturday morning there, next Friday night here. And we'll be talking about, we'll go over the verse on refuge, and then we'll go on from there, and another 2 verses. So thank you very much. I'm going to remain on, whoever, because Chun Hao asked me to stay on afterwards. We're going to talk about some technical things, how to arrange the screens here. But the rest of you, Chun Hao just said, what did he just say? Oh, I sent a photo. I'm not sure. So, original size, annotate. Okay. Anyway, I will see you guys next week. Take care.
Thank you very well. Yeah. So participant can actually leave the meeting room. We'll continue, remember, with the technicalities as he has mentioned. Thank you very much.